Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Hello guys, and welcome back to All for United, Manchester United 3, Burnley 1, and welcome back to the channel where we don't get overreactionary and all this kind of stuff, but yeah, we've beaten Burnley 3-1, so we're winning a double, aren't we? Is it back on? No, I don't think it is it? Make sure you get all your comments in. I'm sure there's lots to discuss from that thrilling game that we've just watched at Old Trafford. So I'll come to each of you first on your kind of initial reaction, really. So Stu, how do you think that? Obviously, we bounced back from Newcastle, but how are you feeling?
I'm not really sure it was a bounce, more of a little bit of a dribble, in terms of performance, in terms of play. Look, you've got to go down the road of win's a win. It's 3 points. And at the end of the day, whether you play good or bad, as long as you score more goals than the opposition, you win 3 points. And we need 3 points. It's kind of with our games in hand, it's almost put us back into where we need to be in contention with top four. Tottenham still got a game in hand on us, a point behind. So I think Tottenham are a real problem at the minute, to be honest. I think Conte's got a little bit of momentum going them. But as for tonight's performance, I think the changes that he made were right. I think bringing Wan-Bissaka in was probably right. But to be fair, I'm not really quite sure what Wan-Bissaka offered us. He didn't really get any of his trademark tackles in tonight. He kind of played in the middle third, really. It was a very, very strange performance by him. I thought Luke Shaw was okay. I thought he came in and did okay. I think Bailly... Well, I'm not really quite sure what the point of Eric Bailly is, if I'm being brutally honest with you. It's just a wasted squad place. Every time he comes on, he fucks off injured, doesn't he? So I'm not really quite sure what the problem is there. Obviously, McTominay's had his 1 in 7. Great game. So good old Scott will go missing now for the next 6. But to be fair to the lads, I thought he was dynamic tonight. I thought he was brilliant. He was by far our best player tonight. For some reason, I advocated a few months ago, actually, Ronaldo and Cavani should play as a spearhead attack. But I don't know about you guys, but I thought Cavani looked quite lost tonight, which is a real shame. I've never seen Cavani kind of overawed by a presence, and I think Ronaldo subdued him tonight. I was really shocked by that. It surprised me. His work rate was there. Don't get me wrong, his off-the-ball work rate was there. But I was quite surprised by that. Greenwood, average at best. I thought Sancho was okay. If I'm pressed on it, not a great performance. Has it changed much under Ranić from Ollie? I don't personally think so. And I really don't subscribe to the theory, and I will be quiet now. I don't subscribe to the theory that these players take time to pick it up. These are elite professional footballers at the top of their game. They should be able to pick up a formation change and a shift balance change quite easily. And one thing I would say, I thought Burnley gave an outstanding performance. I thought they were brilliant. You're coming up against a team, by the way, that there's no quarter given. There's absolutely no passengers allowed in this Burnley 11. You either go at it full pelt or you're off. And I thought that Aaron Lennon wound back the clock a little bit. I thought he took his goal well. I've seen criticisms of Maguire. I've seen criticisms of De Gea. I can understand it, but I thought Lennon took it well. I like McNeil on the left. I thought he's got some great skills, some great touches. But for me, the standout performers, which is going to be strange because we scored 3 goals, was Tarkowski and me. It's a 2-2-2, very, very good, solid partnership of a centre-halves. And when Tarkowski was knocked out by Ronaldo's ball, did you see Ben Mee kick him? Get on with it, pal. That's what you need. That's what you need. So anyway, I'll shut up now. That's what I thought anyway.
Yeah, Marcus, obviously I'll come to yourself because that was bloody depressing from Stu there. I spent most of the time talking how good Burnley were, but no, I do share your points actually in what you were saying. Marcus, obviously you were a big advocate of a change of manager. Stu said there that not much has changed. How are you kind of feeling now after that game as well? Because we've played the bottom 3 now, and not really. We were better tonight, but not much better, are we?
Yeah, it was a very mixed performance. I think Stu took the words right out of my mouth because I think Burnley were very competitive, and Tarkowski definitely committed suicide, blocking Ronaldo's ball. But yeah, I think it's weird, isn't it? Because yeah, I agree with people that it doesn't take that much time to get these players to adapt to a certain system if you are a good manager. But at the same time, there aren't that many training sessions around this time of the year. People need to remember that. So Ralph Rangnick has spoken a lot about video analysis and trying to train the brains and all this stuff. It sounds nice in theory, like we're going to train the brains, but like you actually have to do something in training and get it into your feet, you know? So I'm not worried when it comes to that. I'm not worried. If Ralph ends up being a good manager, cool. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Like, he's an interim at the end of the day. So I'm really not worried. I've been saying for a few weeks now that I've written the season off, not in a bad way, not in a disrespectful way, but more in a way that there's very little United could do. Probably not finishing in the top four would be one of those things to upset me to where I'm like, oh my God, it was a terrible mistake hiring Ralph. Like, he's an interim, man. So I'll allow it when it comes to Rangnick. But just in general, looking at the performance, I thought the first half was obviously much better than the second. I thought in the second we dropped off quite a lot. And if Burnley had that little bit of extra quality, that 3-1 could have easily been 3-2. And suddenly we've got a game on our hands, an unnecessary game, especially when the legs are tired and we're trying to see out the result to our next game. So there was a lack of intensity. Again, these players showing sort of their real personalities there towards the end. But yeah, we won, and that's all that matters. We won. I do want to touch on the Cavani point a little bit, right? Like, I know people love the Cavani-Ronaldo partnership, but I initially thought when people brought it up, like, that was a bit weird because I think Cavani and Ronaldo are quite similar players, and I thought if you're going to play a front two, the way I think of it, obviously, and I could be wrong, is you always want two different strikers. You want one who's good in the air and then one who offers something else. Maybe he's good at hold up, maybe he's good at link up, maybe he's a little bit more creative. But with Cavani and Ronaldo, they're just both poachers. You know, they both love to go for the balls in the air. They both like to hang around the box. Yes, Cavani's a little bit more of a hard worker, and he is good at hold up. But typically, what we love about Cavani is the fact that he's just always there to get those chances. I mean, even against Newcastle, if it wasn't for Cavani, we wouldn't have won that game. I mean, drew that game. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. But that's all I've got to say on it.
Yep, I don't think I can disagree with too much. To be fair, I'm worried now. This is going to be quite a negative show. I will just shout out this comment, Vipul. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I was going to say when I saw that from India there, it must be early morning over there. So credit to you for staying and watching the game. You know, you fans on the other side of the world for getting up that early. That is definitely commitment to the club. And you're watching All for United as well, so that is fantastic. Again, talking about what you were just saying there about the Cavani and Ronaldo partnership as well. And there's a lot of love, obviously, for my next guest, John. Obviously, I think the last time you were on All for United was Ralph's announcement. I think it was with me, you, and Ben, I believe it was. So, just your kind of initial thoughts and off the back of that win.
Yeah, I mean, I think the jury's very much out on Rangnick, and to be honest with you, I think I'm also very interested in the performances in terms of whether there's any chance of him staying on. So I even think top four, and I genuinely mean this, I think winning the Champions League, which is obviously a super long shot and would be very good on his CV. But I don't necessarily think that means that he's necessarily the person to take us on for the next 5 years, because we've seen other people, whether it be Bayern Munich when they won it, but they knew that Guardiola was the person to take them on to the next level. And also when Chelsea went under Di Matteo, I mean, an interim manager, a little bit like we've got here with Rangnick. So I don't think that that's the be all and end all. A lot of people are thinking, well, if he gets us in the top four and wins us a trophy, then he gets the job. No, not for me. If the performances are unbelievable alongside it, fine. But as we've seen so far, I think he's been in charge of about 4 or 5 matches, of which were unbeaten. But he has come in at a very favourable time. I mean, to be honest with you, I think this sort of 10 or 15 match period, if we're not winning, you know, say 80, 90% of those matches, then that's disappointing. And obviously performances too, the one against Newcastle in particular was just shambolic. I think tonight was slightly better. And of course the results are everything. And looking at the table, I do see Chelsea still possibly getting dragged into this top 4 race. I think their performances are particularly worrying. So I do see now, in a way, I think Liverpool will be fine one way or another, especially if they can negotiate the AFCON, etc. I do see it being like 4 or 5 teams looking for 2 spots. I completely agree regarding the Spurs comments that they are the form team, albeit that they dropped a couple of points yesterday. But that also is a great example of people saying Rangnick needs time or whatever. Yeah, but we've seen Tuchel come in, win a Champions League 4 months later, 5 months later. By the way, talking of which, there's something with the Rangnick timeline regarding this Chelsea offer that he supposedly got that the maths do not add up. So I'm taking that with a pinch of salt. Maybe there was an interim person that reached out to him somehow, but I'm not convinced on that, because he talks about getting the offer the job in February. Well, Tuchel was appointed on the 25th of January. So if he was offered the job 2 weeks after Tuchel took over, then when I think we've got an issue there. He was also told that he got offered it till the end of the season. And anyway, but looking at Conte is a perfect example of a guy that can come in and give you an immediate response. And of course, before that Newcastle match, he had 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, I know he had the COVID in the camp, but he still had some of this moment to get his ideas across. So, yeah. Anyway, 3 points. That's the most important thing. We're still in that top 4 race. I was a bit worried after the Newcastle result, thinking, fortunately, Spurs dropped points this week, and I still aren't convinced by Arsenal, and Chelsea dropped more points. So, it's still nip and tuck for that top 4 race.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the main thing, isn't it? Yeah, yes, we've won today, but like I said at the start, I was joking about it, but I'm not going to be running around cheering around the room that we've just beaten Norwich, Newcastle, Burnley. That's the bottom 3 right there. So I'm not going to be cheering about that. I mean, you could argue today a better side takes those chances that Burnley had. I think Stu said before we came on, when do you see Chris Wood missing open headers like that, like the chances he had today? And on another day, it could have been a different game.
I mean, he had more space than Neil Armstrong in that area tonight.
We did, didn't we? Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, so there's still a lot of issue. I just want to focus on a couple of the positives first. That's been mentioned already. Obviously, Scott McTominay, Luke Shaw. Stu, I'll come to you first on that one then. I think the question in regards to Luke Shaw, has he played his way back into the starting squad? Because obviously Tellez has come in. Dalot and Wan-Bissaka, I think, is a bit closer. But do you think Shaw has pushed his way back in, or were you not as impressed as some people today?
A difficult one. I would assume that Luke Shaw will reassume his position as number 1. I'm guessing that his issues with injury, his concussion issues, we don't know exactly what players had COVID or who were affected by COVID. He could have been isolating. No, we don't know because I've not seen that information released. I would say, judging on tonight's performance, he ran out of gas in about 60, 65 minutes, which you would expect. I would think that you'll see him in the left back position for a next match. And I'm just trying to think: is it Villa, isn't it, in the cup?
Wolves just before that.
Is it Wolves and then Villa, isn't it? So I think you'll find Shaw will be playing. With regards to his game, he wasn't quite as penetrative as he's been, I guess. One for the better words. His crossing wasn't on point tonight. He still looks like he's carrying a little bit of timber. I don't know whether it's just his build and his demeanor. I don't know what the others think, but he doesn't look as lean, but he looked hungry. He looked like he was missing the game. He looked like he was enjoying the game. He was out of position on a couple of occasions, but again, that's to be expected. I would say Tellez has probably had his chance, maybe not taken it. I mean, he was amongst most of the side that was woeful against Newcastle. So I would expect to see Shaw line up against Wolves, yeah.
And John or Mark's, either of you can jump on the back of this one. Mark's saying there, that it is just one game, and it would be harsh on Tellez just to pull him out after, I know Shaw came in today. I thought Shaw was okay, but moving forward, obviously, like Stu said there, we've got Wolves next in the league, Villa in the cup, and I can't remember who we've got after that. But can you see Shaw coming back in now and making him the number 1 left back again, or do you think this was just because it was a midweek game? Tellez comes back in on top of that.
I thought he was going to go there, but anyways, I don't know. I need time to think about it, because for me, like when I look at Luke Shaw and the player he's been for Manchester United over the last 18 months, obviously he's been impeccable apart from recently. And we know what Luke Shaw has to offer. With Tellez, I'm not really sure what the gears he can go through. What is his full potential? Because again, yes, he has played a series of games recently, but I don't think for me that's enough to say, he should definitely be out of the team, or he should definitely be in the team. Like, I'm quite happy with Tellez. So I think with Luke Shaw, he's got the place as a starter because of that. He was a starter under the previous manager by default, but I think Ranić's got to look at it and ask himself, what does he want from his fullbacks? What does he believe is the best thing, right? Because there's debates about whether or not Telles is better than Luke Shaw going forward, right? And I don't know what you guys think, but I think Telles is a little bit better than Luke Shaw going forward. I think the thing with Luke Shaw is, though, that particularly when he's playing with Marcus Rashford, the chemistry is unmatched. Like the way he's able to overlap at the right times, and Rashford's just kind of able to offload it to him, and he's got that free space to head in across. Like it just makes the job that much easier for him. So what I would say about Alex Telles is, I think if we are going to see the best version of either Telles or Shaw, it's about who plays on the left wing, and if they can consistently get a chance to build the chemistry and build a partnership. And I feel like Telles hasn't had that opportunity, whereas Luke Shaw has. And for whatever reason, I think it would be harsh on Alex Telles if he did get dropped, but I wouldn't be too upset, because I don't mind Luke Shaw.
I would just say that if he plays a 4-4-2, he'll always play Shaw and he'll always play Wan-Bissaka because they're both better defenders, natural defenders than Telles and Dalot. That's if he plays a 4-4-2. If he plays a 4-2-2, which I quite like that system, and I think the suspension of Bruno made him go to a 4-4-2 today. That's my theory on that one. Then if he plays a 4-2-2, then he will play Telles and he will play Dalot because he requires wing backs to do the work. So that's how I would view it.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I think Shaw is decent going forward. I see some advantages of Telles in terms of possibly from the dead ball, his ability to strike a ball. Yeah. Delivery. Sometimes Shaw can be all right. He's a bit hit and miss, perhaps, but I think Shaw's got ability to even beat a player in the final third. I don't, when I compare Shaw and Wan-Bissaka in terms of the final third, that's like chalk and cheese. Shaw, when he's in that position, doesn't look like a rabbit in headlights. Whereas Wan-Bissaka's like, oh my God, what am I doing here? Where am I going to get rid of the ball? And just get rid of the ball as quickly as he can so someone else can take over that responsibility. I actually do see the Shaw and Wan-Bissaka thing slightly differently in that I think Wan-Bissaka, he's possibly playing for his future. I don't see that with Shaw. I think we've seen enough body of work with Shaw in two particularly strong spells. The last, say, the 12 months until maybe August of this season, and maybe even a bit further back in terms of when we first sort of went into lockdown. So there was 18 months there of just constant improvement, peaking at the Euros, where he was arguably the best left back in the tournament. So Shaw, I think his ceiling is much higher than Telles, than Dalot, so it's just a case of getting him back to that ceiling. And I think a run of games, hopefully a bit more focus. I do think his weight can fluctuate a bit, and he's even someone who's admitted to that. So I think if he stays focused and remains on his top game, then he's a starter. And I would like to see him now given a run of games. I think one or two people have said maybe it's a bit harsh on Telles. I'm not so sure. I don't think Telles has done anything in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks. We've already mentioned the easiness of the games. I don't think Telles has done anything that suggests he's our long-term left back for the future. Wan-Bissaka, different case. I have huge reservations about him, and maybe in 12 months, he's not our first choice right back. Maybe he's not even at the club.
Interesting. I don't really know where I stand personally, because I've been critical of Luke Shaw before he had that run of form, obviously, that then took him to the Euros last summer. And everyone was talking about him as the best left back in England. So I've never really seen it. Obviously, last season, I thought, as every United fan, thought he was excellent and England's best player as well in the tournament. And this season, I kind of agree with what Mark was saying. I think Telles has been okay. I get what people are saying in terms of Telles hasn't exactly set the world alight, but I don't sure it's been so bad that I feel like Telles probably does deserve a bit of a longer run. And we saw the best of Luke Shaw today. Obviously, he's been out of the side due to different reasons, but maybe that is the way for. I personally believe in any football club, the way to get a reaction out of certain players, you need to take them out of the limelight sometimes. When they're having a poor run of games, take them out, put them on the bench for a game, or completely drop them out of the squad and bring them back in. And I think we saw that with Luke Shaw today.
Vipul, by the way, makes a great point that I think with Shaw is that he's great at just bringing the team forward. He's great at doing a 1-2, deep in his own half and moving it on and then bursting if he's got that ability. I completely agree with that. And I think he's the guy that can sometimes carry us forward that when we need to be. So anyway, Stu, go on.
All I was going to say was it depends how you judge a fullback. What is your own personal criteria for a fullback? I mean, everybody knows what my criteria is. Tackle first, defend first is my criteria, but that doesn't sit with the modern game. The modern game is all about an attacking fullback. It's a Robertson, it's your Trent Alexander-Arnold, etc. But until Ranić decides how he wants to play, does he want to play with high fullbacks or does he want to play with proper fullbacks? I think that determines who starts. Now, I tend to agree with both Marcus and John in as much as they both offer different things. You know, Luke Shaw's crossing is a little bit suspect, and Telles is excellent with his dead ball skills, as we well know. You know, can take a free kick, can take a penalty, can cross pretty well. But is that enough to get into the side? And one other thing about whether a player deserves to start or not, is bollocks. It's Premier League football. It's you fight for your place. And if you're not, if you're not playing well, you're out the team. Simple as that. Nobody deserves to play in any match. Nobody. You've just got to earn your way. You've got to earn your stripes. Unless you're Ronaldo, I guess.
That you just led me on absolutely beautifully, Stu, into a question that I'm going to come to Marcus first on. I love that, Stu. I'm going to have to get you on every show here. That was a perfect segue into earning your place, and we're going to talk briefly about obviously Donny van der Beek didn't feature at all today, and the fact that it was a 3-1 up, fairly comfortable in the game for periods of the game. The fact that Donny didn't come on at all, have we seen? The question I'll come to you first, Marcus, on very simply is have we seen the last of him in a United shirt?
Yeah, the short answer is yes. Like I think, genuinely speaking, I'm not being reactionary or anything. I genuinely believe we've seen the last of him. I think this is going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I'll be surprised if he stays beyond this, and I'll actually commend him for being such a model professional, because honestly, I don't see how anybody can be upset with Donny van der Beek if he decides today, you know what, if I can't come on against Newcastle, against Burnley when we're 3-1 up, right? Like, what am I supposed to do? I was man of the match, well, borderline man of the match against Watford when I came on a couple of weeks ago, playing in a central midfield position. I then got played in a completely different position a couple of weeks later, and I still put in a decent performance, and then I can't come on against the likes of Burnley. Under the previous manager, we don't need to talk about that, but he wasn't really given the opportunities that other players were given despite their poor performances. So you've got to really feel sorry for Donny van der Beek. And I know some people don't feel sorry for him. Some people just think, what does he offer to the team that's so special? But we've been deprived of, obviously because of our infamous midfield pivot, mid-Fred, we've been deprived of midfielders who can carry the ball forward consistently and that we can trust, and that we don't get heart palpitations every time they play a sideways pass that could lead to a goal for the other team. And that's what Donny brings to the table for me. There's not one performance where I've watched Donny and I've thought to myself, oh my God, that's a 4 out of 10. At worst, he's just been average, borderline. You could make the argument that he's had some bad games, but I've never conclusively thought, get Donny van der Beek out of the team. I've thought that about so many other midfielders, and it's crazy to me how he just hasn't gotten a chance. Not even two. Has Donny van der Beek had 2 starts back to back as a Manchester United player? I would love someone to let me know in the comments down below, because it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And I'm usually not like this with players. I'm usually not the type of person to support a player over a club and say, his treatment's been awful. But with Donny, I am like that because I genuinely feel sorry for the guy. And I think he is a talented footballer. So it's very strange. It's very strange. But I think he's definitely gone.
Stu, where do you stand on that? Because obviously, I'll come to you in a second, George. I just wanted to get Stu's thoughts on it, because obviously you've been a big advocate of getting Donny into this side. Obviously, you know my feelings on it. I don't think I agree with Marcus, actually. I don't think he's ever been bad, but I don't think he's set the world alight, albeit on limited chances. Obviously, Stu, you were, I don't know where you still are, a big, obviously, supporter of him. Do you think we've seen the back of him, and can you blame him, really?
Look, yeah, I am a huge supporter of him. I think he's a wonderful footballer. I think he's perfect for us. He offers something completely different out of the whole midfield quintet that we've got that's in and around it, and including McFred, Matic, Bruno, and himself in that. And for me, Donny adds the stability. Donny adds the calmness. Donny adds the intelligence. In fact, he raises our intelligence level when he's on the pitch. And he raises it so much that some of the players in and around him can't cope with it. We've seen on many occasions he's been in acres and acres of space, and players have just looked the other way. Completely looked the other way. You haven't got the nous to turn the head. You should, when you play football, you should always play football with your head on a swivel. That's what you should be doing. You should know exactly where you are at any given time in any segment of the pitch. That's football. And it's just its basic form. And Donny has been absolutely brilliant at creating these spaces and creating these angles. He was getting better in the tackle. He's won a couple of headers in there, but his ball retention is far, far better than Fred. I mean, it's on a different fucking level than Fred. It's on a different level than McTominay as well. And it's probably better, to be brutally honest, and Bruno, and I'm talking ball retention. I'm not talking about vision. I'm just talking ball retention. And he's been able to use the ball in a tight area. And we've seen on many occasions that Bruno can't quite do that. But Bruno offers a different game, a different style of play. So I'm perplexed by it, just like Marcus. I really am perplexed. And you can't just go into the side and then get dragged out the side or played out of position. Now, people talk about, and I talk about, look, professional footballers should be adaptable. Yes, they should, but you need to have a chance, at least a chance. And I think he does need a 2, 3, 4 match run. He can't be any worse than Matic, Fred, or McTominay. I know McTominay's had a worldie of a game today, but like I said earlier, that'll be it for McTominay for 6 or 7 games. He'll just go back into his shell. We've seen it more, on more than one occasion. So I am perplexed. So he could have been suffering from COVID. Again, we don't know all this. I doubt it, but we don't know it. I'm trying to pluck from some kind of tree of hope here that he has got some COVID. Because if I was him today, I'd be, well, what am I supposed to fucking do then? Is he training okay? Every pictures of training sessions I see, he's smiling, he's laughing, he's happy. But is he really happy? He's out the Dutch team at the minute. He's got a real problem, Donny has, on what he wants to do. Do you stay and fight for your place? I would like to see him play. I really would. I can't. Thanks, Mr. Biggs. I haven't got the answers, actually, Connor. I just don't have an answer as to what's gone on. I like most United fans, I can't quite get my head around. Even Saber Verona's, John will know, didn't set the world alight for us, but he had more chances than Donny van der Beek. So I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not as perplexed as Stu and others. I think it's pretty clear now. I mean, we've seen 2 managers, neither of which are that confident in him. I mean, anyone who thinks that it may have been something personal from Ollie, and I think that's always a silly idea anyway, with very little evidence to back it up. I mean, Ollie basically was the coach when he was brought into the club, although I do know that sometimes other players are brought in, etc., over coaches' heads. But actually, he started, and we all remember he came on for his debut in that dreadful match against Palace, scores the goal. And I do think we talk about recency bias, but also you can have that, on his debut, he scores, we had it with Martial to some extent where, he scores on his debut and he does have a good first 6 months at the club and then doesn't do anything for 5 years. But we're still remembering that first 6 months. And I do think Van der Beek was something like this. He did come into the team. He did play okay in those first few weeks at the club, which also suggests that there was nothing personal. I mean, if it was the case that it was something like this, or if he was brought over Ollie's head, then he wouldn't have been given those chances at the beginning of his career. But we've now seen him at the club for 2 years. And we've now seen 2 coaches that don't trust him enough to put him in the team. And I must say, I've never seen anything with him in terms of, I've never seen him play 2 games, if you like, decent over. Okay, I know he often doesn't get the chance, but he'll come in, he'll play 90 minutes and he won't play very well, and then he won't play for another month. And listen, whether he had COVID or not, I don't know, but he was on the bench tonight, so he's obviously there as an option. If there's one, I mean, basically what I'm saying is it's training. There's obviously something that these coaches, both Ranić and Solskjaer and Carrick, have all seen of him in training, and they're going, this guy is not good enough. I mean, to be honest with you, I've heard quotes from Roy Keane, for example. He'll go and buy a player when he was at Sunderland, and then he'd arrive and he'd think after one training session, he'd go, I've made a mistake here. This guy's just not good enough. Training is super important. How many times would you see a random player playing for United under Ferguson? You go, what's he doing in the team? Ferguson had seen something in training in the previous days and weeks and thought, he's going to play today and would do unbelievably. And so I'm not, I think we see from certain other channels, if you like, that have their pro Van der Beek agenda because they have friends in the media, if you like, that or whatever, that give them nice, cushy little interviews, and then suddenly they're on this pro Van der Beek bandwagon. But it's nothing to do with the ability of the player on the pitch or whether he's going to win us trophies or take us to the next level. It's all about what friends they have in the media. So, I just don't think he's good enough. And if there's, listen, listen, he can prove me wrong. He'll leave United. I think it's probably very likely either in the next window or the one after. And if he goes on and has a stellar career, but who's going to be coming in for him? Are Madrid going to be coming in for him? Are Juventus going to be coming in for him? Manchester City, Liverpool? No, no, because they don't see a player in there either. He may well return to Ajax, and I guess if there's a glimmer of hope for him in terms of his United career, it would be that we've got Ten Hag as a long-term option, and there might be something in that. But other than that, that's it. And do I feel sorry for him? No, I don't actually. I don't have an issue. He's not done anything to me that says this guy deserves to play. And coaches are seeing him day in, day out, and 3 different coaches and more. I'm sure there's other coaches that work at United and have the same feeling. Have all said this guy's not good enough.
I think that's the thing for me. It's not under Ollie. It was Ollie doesn't know everything that was coming out, but obviously now it's 3 different. Obviously, Carrot was interim as well. I know Ralph is as well. I actually agree partially with what Brendan was saying. I think maybe maybe he doesn't click personally with the rest of the team, because you don't need to get on as such, but you do need to have some kind of chemistry with your teammates.
Sorry, Con. I mean, he's coming from the Netherlands. He speaks English. Culturally, we're not a million. I think can be very different with someone like Seba Veron, who Stu picked up on earlier, who's played most of his career in Italy and Argentina and doesn't speak English, blah, blah, blah. And I get that. I'm not sure if there's anything to do with any off-the-field cliques or lack of. And I just don't see that.
Go on, Mark. I'll let you have the final word.
I was going to say that I think a light bulb just went off in my head, because I don't think it's that Donny van de Beek isn't necessarily good enough for the Premier League or isn't a good footballer at all. I think it's more to do with the fact that if you look at the trend of players who tend to not get a chance in the team, they tend to be the more technical footballers. They tend to be the ones who have better ball progression, but they're not physical. They're not as tenacious as a Fred or a McTominay, but they tend to be the more technical, the more aesthetically pleasing footballers, whatever you want to call them, right? And Donny van de Beek is no different. I mean, even Paul Pogba was a huge conversation around Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. What's his best position? There were days where Paul Pogba was on the bench and Pogba FC went mad. And it just seems to me like all the players who have been out of the team for whatever reason, whether they've been on the bench, whether it's been because we don't know what their best position is, or they just haven't been in the team altogether, whether it's Delot, Telles, Van de Beek, it seems to me like the more physical players are preferred in the Premier League. And that would actually make a lot of sense to me. The funny thing is, though, we saw Donny van de Beek bulk up as well. Like we've seen his physique has changed a lot. You've seen the photos of him now compared to when he first arrived at the club. So I really don't know what it could be beyond that. I don't believe it's that he's just not good enough. Like, I think he does have some qualities that do make him stand out. It's just, does he fit with the team? Is Van de Beek's presence in the team, does that make us a better overall team? And can we find a way to have him in the team and still be balanced? I don't think so, right? And I think that's the problem. It's an issue of balance. And I don't think Rangnick or Ollie could find a way or figure out a way of putting Van de Beek in the team, getting the best out of him, while still maintaining the solidity defensively, etc., etc. But I don't know. Who knows? Yeah,
it's fair points made by all. I'm just going to bring it. There's a lot of people watching on Facebook as well. Actually, come over to YouTube, All for United, and smash a like on the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. I'm just going to bring it back to the game, slightly to the players that did play in it. I've seen a few comments about it, and it wasn't something I was going to mention, but I think, Stu, I'll come to you first on it just because it's the position you play in. So I'm going to call you the expert on this one. There's been a lot of comments about Harry Maguire's performance today. Now, he's been heavily criticised over the last few weeks. I don't think he was awful today. I think he was slightly at fault for their goal. But where do you kind of stand on him at the moment? Because it seems like he's another one he's the captain at the end of the day, so he's going to be undroppable to a certain extent. Or he's going to have more chances than others. How do you think his performance was today? Because I personally didn't think it was as bad as some people are saying.
No, he was all right today. I would like playing against someone like Chris Wood, because you know what you're going to get from him. He's going to try and bully you. He's going to try and fight you all the time. He's good in the air. Chris Wood just doesn't disappoint in that kind of area. I think Maguire handled him okay, really. He got brushed off the ball once or twice, and of course, both him and Bailly were left wanting for Chris Wood's. As John put it earlier, I think he had the earth surrounding him. He was in that much space. It was unbelievable, and I couldn't quite understand him missing that header. The problem that Maguire's got is twofold, really. He's not had and people are going to have a go at me here, but he's not had a settled partner alongside him. And unfortunately, to establish yourself as a real solid centre half, you need consistency to your left or to your right. You need a partner that is with you week in and week out. And when you had that Lindelof-Maguire partnership, you had Henderson between the posts, who was commanding, not maybe as good as De Gea shot stopping, but as a commanding goalkeeper, it makes your life as a centre half so much easier. What's happening at the minute is, and I've said this before and I'll keep on saying it, there's a huge 20-yard gap behind Maguire to De Gea, and there's a chasm in front of Maguire in terms of our midfield, and that's your biggest issue. So you're always being attacked from two sides, and people forget this about centre halves. You know, people always say that centre halves are playing with their face towards, towards the attacking third. You're not. You're playing everywhere. You're playing deep in the 6-yard box, up to the halfway line. That's where you're playing, and you've got to position yourself with your teammates in and around you, with your goalkeeper telling you what's happening behind you, and your midfielders kind of talking to you as well as your own visual paths about how to defend and how to position yourself. And unfortunately, people are having a go at Maguire, but we are getting caught in there all the time. We're getting caught in this 10 or 15 yard area between our midfielders to our centre halves, and then there's another 10 or 15 yards beyond our centre halves to De Gea. And people have got to understand all of this. They don't. They don't get what it's like to play. Well, I'm sure they do, but it's a difficult position at best. And if you've got different players around you, how many partners has Maguire had this season? He's had 3 partners this season alone. He's always the constant. It's always either Bailly, Lindelof, or Varane with him. And this is the issue. You need this kind of continuity. So, look, I thought he was okay today. People don't, have had a pop at him. Why is he still captain? The old fucking captain thing. Well, as I said to you the other day, Connor, I never paid any attention to my skipper because I was too busy concentrating and shouting for this, for the specific area I was playing. And so is my right back, so is my left back, so is my 2 midfielders, so are my strikers. We're constantly talking and communicating. So the idea that he shouldn't be skipper, it's just a moot point. Captains don't matter anymore in football, because if you're not in a team of leaders, we don't have real leaders in our side. Let's be clear about this. We don't have real leaders. There's only really Ronaldo, I guess. We don't have any real leaders. Then the captain's a moot point. So I think people have got to get off Maguire's back. I think they've got to let him play. I think he's had problems coming back from his injury, obviously. We don't know who suffered from COVID, who was had to isolate. He could have been one of those. We don't know. So I just think, look at the bigger picture rather than he's an easy target right now, I'm afraid.
Yeah, definitely. Mark, so I'll come to you with a similar kind of question. I just want to Mark, how many of you had? I don't know what he's just randomly chatting about Aaron Lennon in the comments here, just bringing up random fact. I did see that stat earlier, to be fair. I think somebody tweeted it's like being back in 2007 with Aaron Lennon and Cristiano Ronaldo lining up against each other, but there we are. Yeah, Marcus, where do you stand on Harry Maguire then? Because I've seen, again, just while we've been talking about, I've just seen a lot of comments about Maguire. Where do you kind of stand on him then? Because I didn't think, I'm going to say it again, I don't think he was awful today.
I don't think he was terrible today. I think saying he was terrible is just taking a little bit too far. But at the same time, I don't think he was great either. I think he was just like at best average today. And my issue with Maguire, going back to the whole conversation about leadership and conversation about the captaincy, I know some people don't believe that the captaincy matters at all. And that's fine. That's completely fine. We're not meant to agree on everything. But for me, if you are the captain of a football club, then by default, that means you have some sort of weight in that dressing room. You are the person we associate with leadership. And so for me, when I look at Maguire, and people have been talking a lot about body language lately, right? Everybody's been talking about body language. So when it comes to Maguire, whenever we concede, whenever there's an offside for the other team, whenever we're under attack, it always seems to me like he's got his hands in the air and he's just moaning to the refs or he's moaning to someone instead of actually taking charge of the situation, getting on people's backs, telling them that they need to be better. When I see a top-class centre-back for me, one of the first things that comes to mind is are you commanding your back four? Are you telling people like, hey guys, we're playing a high line today. If somebody comes, play him offside, and if you fail, I'm going to give you a bollocking. You know, am I seeing that from the leader, the supposed leader of the club, or the captain of the club? And with Maguire, it's a no, right? And so that's one of my biggest issues and reservations with Harry Maguire, and it's not his fault. It's not his fault. Like he's not going to lose the captaincy anyway, so it's almost pointless talking about it. So it's difficult with Maguire, but you know, I do agree with Stu on the point that he hasn't had a consistent centre-back partnership as well. Like that's definitely 100% true, and that's very important. And people don't think about it. In fact, I said this during the Wolves game. If you remember in the Wolves game, the goal we conceded, I think we ended up drawing that game. I'm not 100% sure what happened, but one of the chances we ended up conceding, where Aaron Wan-Bissaka had to block it off the line, there was a huge gap of space between the midfield and the defenders. There was no one in between, and that went back to the whole issue of us needing a holding midfielder, because that would then in turn improve our defense, etc., etc. Right, so these things are all linked, right, and that's definitely very important. But with Harry Maguire, because of his lack of pace and because of how much space there is in the midfield for teams to run through, it is a bit of a problem, and that's why we signed Varane, because his athleticism and his pace bails us out quite a lot, right? And so yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, and I almost feel nowadays I can't even like go in on Maguire, because you're not really sure when you're being fair and when you're being genuine versus when you're just looking for an easy scapegoat. Because I'm genuinely struggling nowadays to find things to nitpick about his game that he's done right versus what he's done wrong. I almost just think, oh, but you know, it's Maguire. You know, I don't like him anyways. You know, and I fell into that trap today. You know, I've had to really think about it. Like, did he actually have a bad game? And I was like, no, he didn't do anything that led to him having a terrible game. So yeah, he's been all right today. And I think what I would say about the whole captaincy thing is, yeah, like again, I don't agree with him being captain, but it's not going to be stripped of him anyway. So there's no point talking about it. There's no point going into his comments and giving him a load of hate, because it's not his fault. He didn't pick himself as captain, you know, and people need to respect that.
Yeah, and John, obviously you can have the last word on Maguire. I just want to bring up Mark, big up to yourself. Nice little pun I did there. Obviously, he's usually hosting the match reaction. And he's in the comments as well. I should have come on the show, Mark. Anyway, yeah, I'm just want to bring up a comment, John, before I come to yourself. Jarvis is one of the people in the comments that's obviously speaking about Maguire having a poor game, saying constantly out of position, reacts late, and looks uncomfortable. Not to mention his lack of pace. So, John, I'll let you have kind of the final word on this, on Maguire. Obviously, today's performance and just in general, how do you kind of see him at the moment? Because I'll say it for a third time, I don't think he was that bad today. So where do you kind of stand on Maguire's performance today and just overall?
Listen, the first thing I want to say about Maguire is the most notable thing I saw from him maybe in the whole match was at one point when Bailly went down injured and Maguire decides to turn into the club physio for about 30 seconds. And the physio basically comes on the pitch and says, get off him. And because I think he's about to give him some kind of, I don't know what he was going to do, the Heimlich maneuver or something. And the physio's like, don't even touch this guy, because we all know how brittle Bailly is. So, and I just thought, oh, okay, know your place, Captain, know your place. So that was the first thing. In fact, the only thing I thought was particularly notable, I didn't think he was particularly bad today. I didn't think he was particularly great. I think at times, you know, perhaps as you say with the first goal and, you know, other times that we didn't look like particularly solid at the back. I actually do think that was possibly that and Newcastle. The two things is we could have conceded 3 or 4 goals in each match. So we looked a bit solid the first 2 or 3 games under Ranić, but it was sort of lapsing into our old ways. I would say we've been a bit lucky that we haven't conceded more. I think that, yeah, the price tag for Maguire, I think, is an additional thing. 80 million quid, just it wasn't long after Liverpool bought Van Dijk for 75 million. So, I think his performances in England shirt are probably better than they are in United shirt as well, which doesn't help. So there's a lot of question marks. Let's see how we get on. I would love it to work out. I'm not so preoccupied about the captaincy. I do think it means a bit less today than it did sort of 20 years ago. I think we've kind of taken on a more European model in terms of the captaincy, where it just gets handed around to maybe the sort of one of the more senior figures, perhaps the most experienced, rather than someone that's got to play week in, week out and got to be a certain type of player or character. I don't think it makes him undroppable. I actually think I'm guessing Lindelof is out for some reason because wasn't even on the bench tonight.
He's got COVID.
Right. Okay. So I think the Newcastle performance was so bad from almost every player on the pitch, with probably the exception of De Gea and Sancho. And I think we should come to Sancho at some point in this show because he's one of the few bright spots this season. But the performance was so bad against Newcastle, any one of about 8 or 9 players could have been dropped. And certainly the 2 centre halves. I mean, Varane looked like, he didn't look like he came from Madrid. He looked like he came from Wycombe Wanderers. He was that bad against Newcastle. And I think perhaps that's what saved Maguire in terms of today, because Varane was so bad that actually Maguire was just maybe not as bad as Varane. And I actually do think, I know Stu had some concerns about Varane at the beginning of the season. He sort of went back in his box, understandably, as we were sort of keeping clean sheets when Varane was there, and then suddenly we were playing terribly when he wasn't. But I'm not convinced by Varane either right now. I'm not saying that his career, he's had a stellar career for 8-9 years at Madrid and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not saying that we need to panic, and I'm not saying Varane should be dropped, but we've got 4 centre halves. There are doubts over all of them in one way or another. And let's see. And arguably, I think if Lindelof had been fit today, he may well have started.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. We're just going to move it on slightly to a slightly more positive front then. We've got about 15, 20 minutes before we wrap it up. Move on to some positives about the game. Obviously, you mentioned one of them there, John, Jadon Sancho. I just want to ask you briefly on kind of your... In fact, I'll incorporate it with man of the match then. So I'll ask each of you for kind of your man of the match, and you can name kind of your standouts outside of that as well if you want, and your reasons why. So Stu, obviously your man of the match, and anyone else that you want to mention.
Well, I suppose you've got to give man of the match to McTominay. I guess he did put in a stellar performance today. Got his goal, created Ronaldo's goal from his super strike. And he did play quite well. In terms of Sancho, I thought he was good tonight, actually. We're not still seeing his dribbling capabilities yet, but I think Jarvis is right. Energy and drive, determination, will to get into the box. I thought he's starting to display that. I think I've seen in the group chat, and there's a couple of people that have said that Sancho's not really justified his tag. I tend to agree with that. I don't think that he has, but maybe he's, I felt for the first part of the season he's been playing it safe. He's just starting to open his body shape up a bit more, starting to believe in his ability a little bit more, but he's still nowhere near the Sancho that people were raving about at Dortmund. I thought he was good tonight. I think if it carries on and he can carry on in this vein of form, I think, he'll keep Rashford out the side. I'm not so sure about Greenwood tonight. I thought he was okay. I don't think he was anything special. I'm not quite sure where Greenwood's head's at the minute. I don't know whether Greenwood knows what type of player he is at the minute. That's the thing that bothers me most about him. I know he's only a young lad still, and he's got to find his aims and his goals in football. But he just, for me, he's just looking lost, and I can't quite put my finger on it. So man of the match, McTominay. I'm guessing everyone's going to go for him, so that's probably no surprise. But yeah, I think Sancho did pretty well tonight. Actually, I must admit, yeah.
Marcus, for yourself.
Yeah, man of the match has got to be Scott McTominay. Obviously, he was excellent today. I mean, wow, he was excellent. But I think with McTominay, he tends to be a much better player when he's given the license to go forward. That's what I've noticed. Like against Leeds, he was great at the beginning of the season. Against Leeds last year, he was great. He seems to love playing against Leeds. And even some of the other performances he had last season, I remember them all vividly because he was able to get forward, similar to Fred, actually. It's only when they both get put in a box and they're forced to sit back and they get suffocated in the midfield where there's issues with those two. So yeah, Scott McTominay he's a weird one because I agree with Stu. He'll go missing for the next 6 games, and then Scott McTominay, the Scott McTominay sexuals, I like to call them, will be back 7 games from now when he has another good game going, oh, you see, he's so good. Don't listen to these keyboard warriors. Anyways, Greenwood is a very strange one as well. He really is, because I personally think Greenwood should be a striker, but then he gets played out on the wing every now and again, and he knows he has tricky feet. He knows he's capable of getting past a couple of defenders, but then it's like, do I pass or do I shoot? And when he shoots, I don't mind it too much because a striker is supposed to be selfish. But again, when he's playing on the wing, that's really frustrating. I want him to cross it in. I want him to pass. I want him to look up and take a moment on the ball and stop being so excited trying to get into the box and score. So yeah, Greenwood, I think he's turning into a bit of a frustrating player to watch on me. But yeah, not too much else to talk about. I think the only other player we didn't really sort of touch on a lot in tonight's show was obviously Jadon Sancho. And I do think that although his price tag was a bit of, is a bit of a burden now, he will live up to that price tag eventually. I think even when we signed Sancho, I remember talking to one of my best friends and saying that I don't think he's going to hit the ground running. I think he's going to have a very slow start to his Manchester United career, and I'm okay with it. Like I'm just going to wait until his first full season is complete before I start to judge him. And I feel like Sancho's going to be that type of player. I think he's very much, I don't want to use this word because it's turned into a bit of a buzzword, but he's a bit of a system player in the sense that he needs a coach who knows exactly what they want and exactly what they want from him specifically. The moment you tell Sancho to just express himself, I just don't think he's that type of guy. I think he needs to know exactly what you want him to do and where you want him to play on the field and how the fullbacks are going to overlap behind him. And then you just let him do his magic, And so with time, he'll get better. I think he will. But yeah, that's all I've got to say.
And John, for yourself, are you going to make it a hat trick of McTominay's, or are you going to throw another name out there?
No, McTominay gets my man of the match, but I don't think there were any great standout performers. I do think a shout out, as we've pretty much touched on largely, which is for Sancho, and I'm optimistic about Sancho. I think him and De Gea. Has there been anybody else in this season that you would maybe hang your hat on? Maybe Ronaldo, I guess, has carried us at times in the Champions League in particular, but yeah, maybe after Ronaldo and De Gea, I guess he's probably our next best performer, particularly during this sort of troublesome 8 to 10 weeks, the last few weeks of the Solskjaer era, and then obviously the beginning of Ranić's tenure. The Sancho is fine. I'm not concerned about him at all. I mean, I think sometimes it takes a player a year or two to bed into a club, and in Van der Beek's case, possibly even longer. But I think with Sancho, no, I'm pleased. I'm pleased with his performance tonight. He's getting his goals now as well. I think he took his goal well tonight. I do think that probably the Greenwood and that sort of axis of whether we have 2+2, if you like, or 4-4-2 or whatever, the 4-2-2 or 4-2-2-2 or 4-4-2. I think the people that are just behind the two strikers, and we'll come to them in a second, if they're going to be in a 2, they need to also be quite good as they get dragged out. If we're in possession in particular, actually, as an attacking force. So therefore, I actually think this role, actually, this in the 2 there behind the two strikers, I think Pogba is where he's very good centrally. He's very good out towards the left. So we've seen. So I think that could be something as and when he comes back. I think Bruno may be the one that misses out, and Sancho will be the guy again who's semi-comfortable in the centre, but probably slightly more comfortable out wide, albeit that he would probably rather be on the left than the right. But that could well be the 2, and it may well be Bruno, which would have been unthinkable 6 to 12 months ago. He may be the one who misses out. Now, when it comes to the front 2, that's a tricky one because I think the 2 best forwards at the club are possibly Greenwood and Ronaldo, with obviously Cavani has his thoughts and on that, I'm sure, and so would fans of Rashford. But Rashford hasn't done anything for me this season since he's come back from injury to suggest that he's been very poor, actually. So the problem is with Greenwood and Ronaldo is I don't see a partnership there. So there's a lot of issues. I think there's a potential partnership. The thing is with Ronaldo, he's not really a 2. He's a 1, whether that be up front or out wide, but up front. So, yeah, although I think finally I'm just going to finish on Ronaldo. I think anybody who thought that he's not going to be a player for Ranić, or at least this season anyway, whether Ranić continues beyond the season, we don't know. But I think those thoughts in the last few weeks, and particularly tonight, he was the first person I was looking for to see, on the team sheet to see if he was going to be dropped, because I thought his performance against Newcastle, like I said, was like most players was poor. And on top of that, I thought 2 games in 3 days, he's going to be 37 in a month's time. So I thought this is possibly going to be the one. And if you're going to drop Ronaldo, it's a little bit easier to sell it to him at home to Burnley after the performance at Newcastle than it would be against Arsenal, Chelsea, or whoever. So So yeah, I think Ronaldo is here to stay in terms of the lineup. I don't have any huge problems with that. I would. Is it possible for him and Greenwood to work as a partnership? Maybe there's something to be worked on training.
I think he's better with Martial. I don't know Martial wants to go, but I think Ronaldo and Martial's a much better partnership. But we're not going to see it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, forget I said that. Was it matter?
Yeah,
it's just
starting to sound like Marcus then.
Well, no, he rubs off on you, doesn't he? But no, that's what I think. But
yeah, I do agree. I think just briefly for me, then I think I don't think you can look past McTominay really for man of the match. I don't think any other player stood out massively. I think Luke Shaw was good actually today. I think he probably deserves a mention alongside Jadon Sancho. Other than that, I don't think there was anyone higher than a 5 or a 6 today. I just think we were pretty average across the park. So there's no one else really for me other than McTominay that stood out for man of the match. I'm just going to wrap it up with one final question. As if you've been on any of my shows before, you'll know that I like to put my guests on the spot with a little kind of quick fire question at the end of all of my shows. So obviously that's the last game now of 2021. Well, I'm not going to get you to review the whole year because we could be here all night. Obviously going into next year for the second half of the season, we would be if we'd have played all of our games other than COVID. We would be halfway through the season now. Where do you think we are going to try and finish now towards the end of the season? I'll come to you first, Stu. Obviously, I am interested in Marcus's response because he said he's written off this season. But Stu, where do you think we can realistically aim for now? Having seen Ranić's first 5, 6, 7 games, I think it's 5 or 6 now. Where do you think we can realistically aim for next year?
Well, I think John's right. I think there's 5 teams fighting for 4th place. Potentially 3rd, just depending. I think it depends what Chelsea do over the next 2 or 3 matches. I think John's right there. They seem to, I'm not saying in free fall, but they do seem to have a bit of an issue there. And if Chelsea do slip up, then there's 3rd and 4th up for grabs. Top 2 are done, really, aren't they? I mean, crikey, most people will think City's done already. It's going to end City, Liverpool, and then whoever. We've just got to be consistent now in our next 6 games. We've got to pick up 6 wins and really start to put the pressure on Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham. Tottenham, for me, are the biggest problem, I think, right now. I don't like Conte as a person. I don't like the way he conducts himself. But, you can't really argue with what he's done with Tottenham, can you? I mean, crikey. He would have wound our board up completely, and I think they overlooked him based on his attitude, if I'm being honest. And so I think we can finish 4th. I'd like to think we can finish 3rd, but I do think it just depends on what on what Chelsea do in the next few games. I know, haven't Arsenal got City coming up? Is it the next match or
Liverpool have got Chelsea as well?
Yeah, they have. So that could shape it a little bit, but then it all boils down to what we do against City, Liverpool, etc., Chelsea again, and Tottenham and Arsenal, doesn't it? So I think it's going to be really, really tight this year. I think it's going to be the tightest battle for top 4 that we've seen for a good while. Maybe top 4, top 3 for a good while, because I think there's more teams that have got a chance. You'd like to think that West Ham are going to drop out of it, but credit to Moyes, he's got them going. They're a difficult side to play against, so a difficult side to beat. They score goals. Got a cracking player in Jarrod Bowen. He's an unfashionable player, but he's dangerous, and he's making a world of difference for West Ham. So yeah, I think it's going to be really hard, but we could aim for 3rd, but I think realistically 4th is our bedding point.
Yeah, I'll come to me last. I'll just bring up this comment. John reckons Chelsea have Liverpool and City in January. They do, and obviously, John, I wish I had your confidence. I mean, that could translate to men's and women's. We're on the charging boat, so. Marcus,
we've got to play. We've got to play Liverpool and City again, and Chelsea.
Both away from home as well.
Yeah, it kind of moots it, doesn't it? It counteracts it. So
it's going to be extra tricky. Marcus, for yourself, obviously you've written off the season, so that can't be your answer. You've got to actually.
No, I'll give you a proper answer. Look, I think with Ralf Rangnick, it's a bit difficult because there's people who are, for me, setting the bar way too high. Like, I think some people are expecting some miracle, some Thomas Tuchel run in the Champions League and he wins the Champions League. Now, for me, if he wins a trophy, that's a bonus. That is a bonus. I don't think that can be a fair expectation. And I certainly would hope that nobody, on All For United genuinely thinks that if Rangnick doesn't win a trophy, he's failed. Like, come on, man. I think he's got to make top four, whether that's third or fourth. I don't really think it makes a difference, to be honest, because I really don't think it makes a difference. I'll take fourth. For me, it's more about how we play. It's more about whether we see the improvement of the style of play, whether we see some of his ideas actually get translated into the way we perform on the pitch, because he's obviously spoke so well in his press conferences. He spoke about balance. He spoke about control. I want to see that more than anything. Forget the high pressing. Forget all the fancy football jargon. I want to see us control games. I want to see us hold the ball against smaller teams. I want to see us make people chase shadows at Old Trafford. I want to see us turn Old Trafford into a training session under Ralph Rangnick. That's all I want. And I'll be a happy man as long as we make top four as well. Apart from that, yeah, not really much else to say. I really look forward to the Champions League, because if we can get past Atletico Madrid, anything goes for me. Like, that's just a bonus. I did say in my tweets earlier this month that if we can make the quarterfinal of the Champions League and finish top four, even though I've written the season off, that's successful for me. End of story. Because once you make the quarterfinal, you never know. You never know. One good result in the second leg, suddenly you're in a semi-final. Suddenly you only have to win 2 games and you're in a final. And in the final, of course, anything can happen. So you never know. I think if we beat Atletico Madrid, anything is possible. We've got Ronaldo. Yeah, it's not Champions League Varane. He's performing more like Europa League Varane since he's come back. But we've got Varane. We've got Sancho. We've got all these talented players. For me, there's no reason why if we get past Atletico Madrid, we can't go all the way. It's just about whether or not things work out on the day. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, actually. I wouldn't disagree with that at all. I think it's a good point. I think Atleti will be a real test. I think it'll be our acid test. I think if you're going to dip your toe in any kind of acid and see what it comes out, whether it's burnt off or whether it survives, it's Atleti. And for me, I think we've got a real, I think we've got a chance. I think, maybe, John's right. Yeah. John fancies us for Atleti as well. So I think you're right, actually. I think that will be our turning point. That's the key fixture we should be looking at. I agree with you. I'd agree with you about trophies as well. I don't think we need to win a trophy today. For me, the only thing I would go against you on, and it's purely my own thing, is I don't really care about performance at this point in time. Certainly over the next 6 games, I just want to pick up 3 points per match. So that's the only thing I would say. But sorry, John.
Go on, John. Take the floor. Tell us how we're going to win the treble.
He is.
Well, FA Cup, Champions League. What else could it be? I don't know. There's nothing else. But I know what you mean. How are we going to have a storming second half of the season? Well, I think top 4 is 50-50, and I think Atletico Madrid is 50-50. And I think, as Marcus touched on, I think success in those 2 50-50 missions would end up making us reflect on the season and going, well, it could have been a lot worse, and it wasn't so bad compared to how it was after that Watford defeat, staring down the barrel at that point, and also still not having Champions League qualification assured. It then, obviously we got 4 points in the last 2 games in the Champions League. We progressed. We've got Atletico. So it's really in the balance. I think if we get top 4, and I think it's 50-50, and if we beat Atletico, then the season would be not from the way it was at the beginning of the season. I think we'd higher ambitions, but from where we were in November, we would then class that as a success. And obviously, any kind of run in the FA Cup is a bonus. Obviously, that's often draw related. I think regarding the Champions League, there have been worse teams than us to win it in the past, as in Chelsea 2012. Obviously, immediately springs to mind. One of probably the worst team to ever win the Champions League. They were like 5th or 6th best team in England that year, and that was when Spurs were getting in the top 4 under Harry Redknapp. So that's that. And listen, there are 10 or 11 better teams right now in the Champions League. No doubt about it. But you get a favourable draw in the quarters. If you play an English side in the semis, and I'm obviously being as optimistic as I possibly can there. We could easily get our asses kicked against Atletico and not finish top 4. But let's get top 4 and see what else we can sort of salvage from this season. Is it salvage, John?
Right, considering this treble of guests have failed to tell you how they're going to win the treble, I'll do it. I'm not that. I'm not that biased. I'm not. But I think a trophy. I think you are right. I think Champions League. I actually said at the start of the season, I think our best chance of silverware this season is the Champions League, because we're better in knockout football than we are over a season. On a one-off game, we can beat anybody. I think, just because of the quality of players we've got, and we saw it last season with Pereira and Dan James and the likes in the team. So we can do it. So yeah, I think we've got better chance in the Champions League. Top 4 is still on. John made a good point earlier that our penultimate game, our last home game, is Chelsea at home. So that is going to be a massive game.
Yeah.
I think in our running, we've got Liverpool, Leicester, Chelsea, Everton, Arsenal, all in our running. So, we've got a tough final end of the season. And that Chelsea game could decide potentially the top 3, top 4. And like everyone said, there's about 4 or 5 teams going for this. So it's going to be difficult. But I agree with what's been said. I think, Marcus, I think you made the point that people have been holding Ralph to too high of an account. I think when he came in, everyone was like, "Oh, we're going to win a trophy now. Look at this. The Gegenpress is on. We're going to do this and everything else." I think, if we take it down a notch, I think it was never going to flip so quick. But I also agree with what Stu was saying. Right now for this season, I don't really care about performances. We need to get some wins together. Go on a little bit of a run. I don't care how we get these wins. Let's just get some wins together. Get back into the top 4. And see where we are in kind of March, April in the Champions League and the FA Cup as well. So, right, I think we'll wrap it up there. This is, I believe, unless I'm wrong, and I'll get told off after this, but I believe it is the last show on All for United for 2021. It's been a long old year. Obviously, started earlier in the year with the last season under COVID restrictions. We had a lot of shows. We covered the protest as well here on All for United, and I thought that was probably some of the best content on YouTube, especially obviously. Very, very proud to be a part of that. Obviously, coming into this season, things have changed slightly. We've got some new people on board and some existing faces as well. But yeah, on behalf of myself, and I'm sure everyone else here, I hope everyone has a brilliant new year. Stick with us into next year. We've got some brilliant shows lined up. So I can't say exactly what some of them are, but we've got some new shows, some existing shows, everything coming back next year. So,
and happy birthday for Sir Alex tomorrow. I see John Commodo's just reminded us.
Yes, happy 80th.
It's also going to be the 30th anniversary, Stu, of the 4-1 defeat at home to QPR on the first.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
And many people were talking about it being Steve Bruce's birthday the night before, and also New Year's Eve, and also Alex Ferguson's 50th, as it was the night before. And that basically sort of was the beginning of the end of our championship charge in a way that year.
It was. Christ, I'd forgotten about that. 30 years ago.
I'm going to end the show on a little bit of a random one after just doing that little speech. Marcus, do you want to answer Jarvis's little question there?
Oh, that's a random question, but I happen to have wrong side. I happen to have started a gaming team here in my local country, so that's one of the first shirts we ever printed, and it's got my gamer tag M on the back of it, and that's the name I use on Twitter and on my socials. So yeah, I'm glad somebody asked about that. I wasn't expecting it at all, but yeah.
There we go. If you stick that on Twitter, I'm sure we'll all get behind it and retweet it.
It's gaming team. Bloody hell! What's the world coming to?
I think we've lost you. And on that note, we'll wrap it up.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year, everyone, and we'll see you in 2022.
See you soon.